Hello everybody and welcome to the re-recording of Game 2 between Edward Gaming and Snake from the Demacia Cup Demacia Cup Grand Finals semi-final matchup. Thank you to everybody who pointed out that the audio in the last VOD review was too loud. In the recording I accidentally put the volume too loud on the original audio, so it wasn't possible to hear my commentary. So I'm going to be re-recording this entire game. As the first 20 minutes is rather slow, we'll be going through that at double speed, and then when we get into the team fights and the more interesting things, we'll go back to single speed. But I will talk a little bit about the first 5 minutes, which is super interesting, and then from 20 minutes onwards, and we'll go at double speed for the rest. Okay, so just recapping what we covered in the previous recording. So here we have the pick ban. So here we see similar bans to pick 1, except Edward Gaming ban Gangplank on red side, and Edward Gaming target ban, and also target ban the Rek'Sai. This makes sense given that Snake have banned the two S tier sort of junglers, Elise and Kindred, and from Edward Gaming's perspective, they're going to be swapping Lulu first pick for Gragas, and this makes sense because banning Rek'Sai from ZZR, pronounced ZZR, even though as a British person I always want to say ZZR, is a sensible strategy. So ZZR is a very strong Rek'Sai, and Rek'Sai is a champion that's very good at ganking top lane, and offers a sort of pseudo global with his ultimate to support the split push late, which feeds into Snake's top lane focus around Flandre. Also, this is a very sensible ban phase from Edward Gaming, because although the Snake mid laner, is a serviceable Lulu, he's pretty average by Chinese standards on the champion, and he is an excellent Azir. And Edward Gaming, with their last ban, can't ban both Lulu and Azir, so they give up the Lulu to you. It's not a flex pick. Flandre doesn't play Lulu in exchange for getting the Alistar and the Gragas, because Yu is going to be on Azir or Lulu anyway, so there's no point in banning one of them. So this has two implications for the rest of the pick ban. Firstly, it means that Edward Gaming, unlike Snake in the first game, don't try to force a hyper carry contest against Lulu like Snake did in game 1. And by denying the sort of best tank disengaged support and jungler, they weaken the front line of any Lulu hyper carry composition that Snake might want to run. Snake show their hand in second rotation by picking Tristana and Braum, which you can already sort of assume that they're going to do from the first pick, because with the Lulu first pick, there's no real need to hide this part of their hyper carry composition. Lulu is best generally with hyper carries. It's also a priority for Snake. Picking Tristana is also priority, because Crystal, who is their AD carry, has a quite strange champion pool. So he plays Kalista and he plays Tristana like most AD carries, but then his third and fourth most played champions are Draven and Vayne. He rarely plays Kog'Maw and isn't that great on Kog'Maw. He's not so good at his auto attack spacing, and he never plays Jinx. So this means that if Snake want to run a hyper carry composition, they basically have to build it around Tristana, unless Crystal has somehow been practicing hyper carry picks. They're just not in his champion pool. He much prefers to go on to Draven and Vayne. So sorry, when I say hyper carry picks, I mean long range hyper carry picks. Of course, Vayne is a hyper carry late game. So Edward Gaming take Kastin and Sivir as an answer to this sort of long range hyper carry team composition. So this is very smart, because basically it gives them access to the backline, but also that Sivir as an ADC is a very strong complementary pick to Kastin, as it helps to bridge Kastin's weak mid game. It provides wave clear, and it helps grant Kastin access into the backline late game as well. And it also, Sivir benefits from the chaos caused by a Kassadin primary initiate by providing a very large amount of AoE AD damage in late game teamfights. And although Edward Gaming have Gragas and Alistar like they did in game 1, the Gragas and Alistar in this game are playing a very different role to the disengage from the last game. So the Gragas and the Alistar in this game are acting as primary engage with the Sivir speed up, or as secondary engage to follow up on a late game Kastin engage into the middle of the team. Snake pick Riven and Lee Sin, allowing sort of Edward Gaming to round out their composition with Hecarim for the counter pick top. However, at least this time, so in the previous game, Edward Gaming had the advantage in the split push and had the advantage in the 4v4. However, at least this time, Snake's, although they're countered in top lane, Riven against Hecarim, Snake's 4v4, separate from the split push, is actually quite an efficient fighting force. So Flandre, this Riven into Hecarim pick is something which I don't really understand from Snake. But Flandre is an excellent Hecarim player, so he clearly has some sort of logic why Riven is sort of a top pick in the top lane right now, but I don't quite understand what it is. Because he is pretty much the best Hecarim in China, if not the world, and he clearly feels comfortable picking Riven into it. Oh, sorry, this pick ban hasn't quite played up. They switched to Hecarim at the last minute. Top lane. There we go. So that was although it showed Fiora, they actually ended up picking Hecarim. So let me see if I can just go back to the original pick ban. There we go. So this was the total pick ban. So there we go. So Snake third rotation Riven and Lee Sin, and Edward Gaming countered the Riven again top lane with this Hecarim bottom lane, not the Fiora. So this was a pretty even pick ban. So both teams had very strong internal cohesion within their team and solid scaling throughout the game. So Snake have the Lulu Tristana for the late game, matched with the threat of Edward Gaming's Castin sped up by Sivir into the backline. So this is a very much a case of hard engage versus counter engage in the late game. And however, the deciding factor in this game should be whoever gets the edge in the split push, for which Edward Gaming have the advantage, or who manages to get the best teleport flanks late game. So top lane is going to be the key matchup in this game. Edward Gaming have a slight edge in the split push, sort of as both Castin and Hecarim are very strong split pushers, whereas the superior range on Tristana probably gives Snake a small edge in teamfights. Again, we have no Ignite from Snake versus Hecarim, but in this game, at least it's more justifiable with all the dive, especially because Exhaust is quite good onto Cassidin. Whereas in game 1, Snake still took the exhaust on their support, even though there wasn't really anybody that they could exhaust, because they were never going to get in range to exhaust Kog'Maw. Lulu wasn't a great exhaust target, and arguably exhaust is pretty good against Hecarim, because if you don't arguably Ignite is better than exhaust against Hecarim, because if you try to exhaust the Hecarim, he's still going to heal up from his W from all the damage around him, and you really, really want to have the Ignite if you can, although that's a judgment call. I prefer the Ignite, but definitely in this matchup, Snake are correct to have Exhaust over Ignite on their support. So let's go and get into the game. So the thing you'll notice from this early game is Sivir gives the jungler a boost so that Hecarim can again start Raptors and go top if the standard lanes. And Mako goes and runs interference, as he almost always does on Alistar. So you have the AD carry helping with the jungle start, and this again is Edward Gaming trying to get their top laner ahead by letting him start jungle camps. And Mako goes and runs interference, which makes me wonder why more LPL teams don't try to bait and trap this play, as Mako on Alistar runs interference in more than half of his games. And it's something which can be played around and can be predicted, but which teams don't seem to do. But anyway, so again, standard double jungle start from Snake. Again, solo top laner who's going to the two AoE camps as Hecarim, and in order to gain the advantage of a Riven in the top lane matchup. Okay, so here, so note the Braum invades. So Braum invades in order to try to get the jungle start, is spotted, checks red, and checks Krugs. So Snake know where where Edward Gaming are starting the jungle path. The thing which I don't like about what Braun does in this game is he spots Hecarim on Raptors, but he should go, once he's warded Krugs and checked red, he should go straight to Raptors to try to deny the Raptors. And although he spots Hecarim on the Raptors, he's too late because the Raptors aren't there anymore. Hecarim's already taken the Raptors, whereas he should be running interference and stopping Hecarim getting the early buff. So here, note at the bottom lane, which is important, Snake go for a second wave push, whereas Edward Gaming go for a first wave push. Right. And okay, so we'll talk about this first kill here. So what does the second wave push from Edward Gaming indicate? So both of the supports have invaded enemy jungle on their strong side. This means that they know where the junglers are starting. Alistair saw them take the red buff, and this means Edward Gaming predict that the jungle top lane sort of duo jungle are going to go to their blue side, and they know that the Braum, because Hecarim has seen Braum by Raptors, they know that Braum is near to mid lane on the top side of mid lane, right? So you can see Kassadin doing the sensible thing here, which is he's hugging the bottom side of the lane because he understands that Braum is near the Raptors and he's concerned about a gank. At the same time, you could tell that Edward Gaming think that Snake are going to be going to the blue side, to their blue side jungle, because they go for the second wave push instead of the first wave push, which will allow them to get more damage onto tower. And Snake realize this. They realize that they've been seen at the red buff. They realize that that Edward Gaming know where Braum is, and they notice in Kassadin's play that he's hugging the bottom side of the lane, and they exploit this and go and get the gank, and this goes and leads to first blood. So very smart play from Snake to sort of anticipate what Edward Gaming are doing and to play around. And this is the thing I really wanted to highlight at this part. So it gives it. So because Edward Gaming play a very sort of structured and by the number style of game, there are ways that you can exploit this, and this is what Edward Gaming do in the early game. Again, pauses. This is one of the disadvantages of Demacia Cup, as I've mentioned before. The LPL, of course, being held in Shanghai, is when you have sort of the same production crew, the same sort of arena all the time, you have less problems, whereas the Demacia Cup is deliberately spread around China. So they have sometimes it's in Beijing, sometimes it's in Wuhan, sometimes I think it was in Guangzhou a couple of times too. And this means that you have more of these problems than you would expect, because these places aren't necessarily used to hosting big tournaments, or if it's the same production crew, then they're not used to holding it in this venue. It's a different venue. So Edward Gaming's punishment for starting strong side is to be 3 buff, with Snake's blue almost certainly to be handed over to Lulu after the top tower falls. So here, this is quite an important part of the early game here. So Edward Gaming mess up their freeze here. So they have to stay in lane to push the tier 2 tower. They also split the tower gold here. Whereas Snake, of course, give it all to Riven because they're trying to get Riven ahead. This is different from the first game, where Snake split their tower gold to Riven and Hecarim got all the tower gold, which put him miles ahead. So they waste a bit of time here pushing the wave into the second tower, because otherwise the lane is going to freeze against Hecarim. So they waste a little bit of time, but it's not that important because they were never going to be able to defend that tower. However, Snake managed to get a freeze in the top lane, which is problematic, and it means, especially because Clear Love is top side of the map now, because he's going to have to consider being top side of the map so that he can potentially push that lane in, or Hecarim is going to have to be a little bit careful because he's going to be vulnerable to being ganked. So yeah, so that was the point of the early game. So going into 5 minutes, the main things to note is that both of these team compositions, because they have scaling opponents, they're going to take a lot of time to scale up, and the only real place you can sort of expect action is sort of top lane in the Hecarim Riven matchup.
这边的队友也不想帮一下，看看厂长这边等级是蛮低的啊，需要尽力的提升一下等级。
Note already that Hecarim has a huge lead. Even if Riven managed to get perfect CS off that double wave, Hecarim's still going to be ahead on CS, and he did get that jungle camp earlier, so he's ahead on the XP. So this is Edward Gaming doing well to get the Hecarim ahead, and yeah. It's just Edward Gaming had played Hecarim very well in the first game, not quite as well in this game, but anyway, just sensible. It's interesting that ZZR. Oh, it's so. My mind always said ZZR, but of course it's ZZR. Of course ZZR. Going bottom is quite sensible here because Clearlove is a jungler who likes to direct quite a lot of jungle attention bottom lane, and I think he may have been there initially for a counter gank because the lane was pushed in, but I mean Clearlove hadn't come there in time because he was a little bit far behind in terms of jungle start, because remember he got two buffed. Note that the blue is still up. So they must have assumed that Gragas had come and taken their blue, but he hadn't. So it's strange that wasn't checked, but anyway, the point is that the ZZR got 2 buffs. So here we see why Hecarim is so good into Riven. I mean, Riven just can't escape from Hecarim. Hecarim is faster and has been night early, and Hecarim, although he was low, he could walk through the minion wave and heal up off the minion wave with his W. So that's what happened in that fight, and he just chased down Riven. Even though in most matchups you would think that a large minion wave actually helps you, it actually provides healing for Hecarim because of his kill. So again, not so sure what Snake see in the Riven into Hecarim matchup, because they picked into that matchup in game 1. And it seems a really, really bad counterpick. So, I mean, not a lot to say here. So, you see the 1v1 again. Note Hecarim healing up through the minion wave. The fact that there's lots of minions there doesn't really matter. And he ignites him. And even with all of Riven's mobility, there's no escaping from this Hecarim. So.
而且这样瑞文太难受了，现在太难受了，这个太难受了，真的。上一局已经做了半局小媳妇儿了，这一局现在一上来，又是被单杀，然后导致现在本身发育就没人马好，现在补到1倍了。但下路的话，小炮这边推线较快，所以说能够暂时缓解一下队伍的经济压力。
主要是这种发育好的人马跟卡萨丁，其实这盘。 ED 的核心真的是上中两路，这个 ADC 的话其实是功能型的 AD。对，这一场如果发育好的人马，我觉得对于 Snake 的阵容影响力比上一盘还要严重。因为上一盘的话其实是 Snake，其实 ED 是要保大腿的，他们的核心不会放在人马这边。这场的话
again, for those of you who haven't seen the first video, the thing that I really wanted to point out with these two VOD reviews are the strengths of the two different teams. So although Edward Gaming make a number of overly aggressive plays, and I guess you'd call them positional mistakes, their strategic strength is really, really strong, whereas Snake's team fighting tends to be their greatest strength. And this game, whereas the first game was all about strategic play, and Edward Gaming sort of avoided team fighting, except for their terms, and they waited for the mistakes from Snake and punished the mistakes, and whilst allowing their team composition to scale into the late game. This game was a lot more about team fighting, and this is one of the reasons why Snake did so well in this game compared to game 1. And indeed, this is something Edward Gaming opted into. They opted into picking a team fight composition. Okay, so this invade here is a really, really bad idea. Why is it a bad idea? Firstly, Kassadin can rotate here faster. Secondly, Lulu has just had a bad trade in the middle lane, and they have no vision of Sivir at all when they go in to try to get these wards. So we're going to rewind a little bit. So I'm gonna pause and talk through this. This is the first team fight. Okay, so Lulu low from a trade with Caston. They're invading here. They have no vision of Sivir at all, and even if Sivir isn't there, it's doubtful whether they can win this team fight without the two AD carries being there. But of course, Sivir is there and gets in quickly. So maybe Clearlove could have flashed there and got a double body slam, but he has no. I think because this ward would not have spotted him around the bush, so he doesn't have vision. But that's fine. Sivir is here, so Snake are being punished, and this is a very good barrel into the wall from Clearlove. And here we see Tristana getting into the fight, but Tristana is way too late. And this is Snake's fault for sort of trying and invade without proper backup and support. So it's Edward Gaming using their sort of edge, their macro edge to get a better team fight, and this gives them the advantage. So good headbutt against that jump in. If he'd missed that headbutt isn't easy to land because Alistar's headbutt has reduced in speed. If the jump had landed, then Alistar would have been slowed, and it might have given Tristana the resets to clear up all these low health people. But because he headbutts, in fact, in the right direction as well, he manages to avoid a disaster pretty much. So good play there by Mako. Mako, is probably my favorite support in China at the moment. Not because he makes flashy plays. You want flashy plays, PYO is probably the best. But in terms of his map awareness always being in the right place, now of course you can argue that this is good coaching, but I mean, his understanding of how to play around positioning, he's always in the right place at the right time, especially in the early game, and does the job he's required of support. He doesn't necessarily make massive plays like some other supports do, but his play is solid, consistent, and is a complement to what Edward Gaming like to do. So, okay, so here we see the replay. So look at this barrel, excellent barrel here. Exhaust immediately goes on Sivir, but it doesn't matter. So they get the kills here. He'll stop the thing and headbutt away before Tristana manages to get into a position in the fight, which means that they trade 1 kill for 1. 2 kills for 1. I'm not sure where Tristana was going there, but never mind. So here, sort of, we see Snake making some risky plays in the early game, sort of making high-risk, medium-reward plays throughout the early game. So sometimes these have worked. For instance, the 4-person gank at, what was it, before 3 minutes mid. Sometimes they haven't worked when they've invaded without vision. This is another play not working. ZZR going into the jungle without proper backup, giving up another kill. He does, however, manage to get some deep wards here, which, so it's not it's not worth giving up a kill, but they at least have vision now, deep vision, to set up a dragon if they want to go and try to sneak a dragon. But that's the same mistake twice, sort of invading into Edward Gaming's blue side jungle with no backup and no vision. Not very smart heads up play. So. But they do have, the side effect of this is because they've managed to get their deep wards here, they should maybe consider setting up for a dragon now, using this vision. From Snake's side, it's not clear how. So they can't make plays on the top side because Hecarim is much stronger than Riven at this point in time, already sort of 20 CS up. So they have to make plays on the bottom side of the map, and this risks them getting caught out by Sivir as well. But their 4x4 team fighting unit isn't that bad, or at least it won't be bad once Tristana picks up the first item, and Tristana is ahead in CS, but of course Sivir is 4-0 and a pickaxe ahead in terms of items, which isn't great. So they can't really fight here, so what they have to do is sit back and stall at this point in the game. Because, I mean, they shouldn't be making any play. And it's up to Edward Gaming to force the pace, and because Edward Gaming aren't a team that likes to prioritize dragons, they don't really tend to sort of push these advantages. I mean, this is something which Edward Gaming should be doing now. They should be sort of setting up dragons and setting up, because this is a good way that they can force Snake into meeting them in team fights late. But Edward Gaming are very much a team that plays around Baron. They will set up slow pushers around the 20-minute mark to force top laners away so that they have the opportunity to gain vision around Baron, and they don't really fight for dragons as aggressively as some teams in the LPL do. And I think that if I had to say what the largest weakness of Edward Gaming was, besides occasional reckless aggression, it's this lack of emphasis on dragons. So whilst their style of play isn't about taking dragons, the best teams sort of have the flexibility to switch it around, and Edward Gaming sometimes lack this. I mean, they don't take dragons at all, basically. I mean, if there's a free one, I guess they'll take it, but they're never going to. They're not going to sort of aggressively chase for 5 dragons from the early game. Because, I mean, there's no need. They generally out-rotate and out-strategize the other LPL teams. So they're never in a position where they have to do that. But against international competition, this sort of de-emphasis is punished. And was punished by Fnatic, and was punished by SK Telecom.
中路这边 Snake 还是想推的，一个暴击，咚，挡一下，挡到。德他妈这个技能太克小炮的这个 E 了，差一点点血量，这个塔还是有机会的。厂长一闪，布隆顶起盾，这边 Crystal 没有机会炸回来，要不要先拆一下塔？塔差一点点血量，炸了一下，厂长被 Q 到了，被一个露露的皮克斯直接是 Q 死。 这边要踢轮子曼，一个 R 闪盲，是回旋踢回来，但是没用啊，没有伤害。轮子曼这边还是把盲僧给带走了。
Playing the team fight very well. Okay, so
小炮的这个 E 了，哎，差一点点血量。
Tower is low. Should immediately consider backing off from this tower, but of course, why would you back off when you can just go and team fight? Maybe upset by the fact that he missed his flash body slam initiate earlier. Clearlove goes in, misses his flash initiate. But that's not a disaster, because Edward Gaming sort of want to stall this out, keep Snake interested, so that they can recall their Hecarim, and then have Hecarim teleport in with home guards on this ward, which is in the lower side bush of mid lane. So I mean, it's not great from Clearlove, but it's because he doesn't even burn a flash from Snake, but it's not the end of the world because they're setting up a flank from Hecarim. So Gragas gets caught, and immediately Mako has a good heads up play, which is to immediately get Tristana out of the fight. So in hope that he can rescue Hecarim. Note that it doesn't matter anyway, Gragas manages to go down, but they manage to trade and Hecarim gets his flank here, but of course, and this stops any disaster happening, and this zones Lee out. So the reason that Lee Sin dies is because Lee Sin goes in on Sivir trying to get a kill on Sivir, and it's easy to say, oh, Lee Sin's reckless, the rest of his team's in no position to back him up. But actually what happens is that as soon as he goes in, that's when Hecarim channels his teleport and the rest of the team have to back up, or they risk dying to the Hecarim. So it was good timing with his teleport, basically.
塔还没推掉，差一点，那是有点伤，因为厂长第一波一闪已经失误的情况下，其实对于 Snake 来讲，就是属于能赚多少便宜赚多少了。
第一波一闪的话，确实在布隆跟小炮面前，感觉厂长的胆子还是太大了一点。
对，想打个措手不及，但失误了。可是后面 ZZR 上去以后，发现 可以把希维尔踢回来，结果踢回来没有队友接着，反
So,
而踢
so
的是一个
generally,
4
I
头的希
will
维尔。
criticize
就是
players
很
for
勉强的一踢，
overaggression
对，
because
就他
it's
真的
one
是
it's
很勉
one
强把希
thing
维
that
尔
as a
踢回
coach I
来。
find
这
really
个时候
really
想回头跟
frustrating.
队友说，我把希维
Sort
尔
of
踢
getting
回来，
players
0秒
to
他，结果回头一看，
deal with sort of
队友那
aggressive
边也不
tendencies,
行
but
了。
I don't
这
actually
边是
mind that
希维尔
aggression there from
被
Caleb
踢一下，
because he's
哎
trying to defend
好
the
像他
tower
没有人
and
接着，
basically
回
they
头
know
就
that
把这张直接
the
秒
Hecarim
了。
is recalling, so
哇，
they know
这
that
个
they just
Q
have to stall them
花
out
了
for
半
6 or
血出
7
来，
seconds, and then Hecarim is
现在
going
这样
to
子
be able
打的已经相当
to
的
come in because he's almost
自
finished
信了，感觉。
recalling. He can go into base and immediately
主要是
teleport
希
out.
维尔这个英雄，
So
其实他在中期的
So
团
you
战
know,
的
making
时
a
候，
sort
如
of
果你
hyper
装备
aggressive
好，
play
是
there,
不是
maybe it
很
doesn't
炸
work
的？
out, maybe
主
it
要
does.
他的 AOE 伤害
But
对
you're not going to
他
be in
的
a bad
就
position
跟
when
W
you
就是
do
乱
although
砍
he
型
should
的。
at least have managed to get a flash.
现在反而是 EDG 要找一下节奏了。现在上路 Koro 是压制住瑞文，而在中路的话 Deft 把线霸住，
The
下
reason
路
that
北面也
we
是
all
继续
love
带线，
Caleb
这
is
样子
because
3
of
线齐
his
收的情况下 ，EDG 他们的优
strategic
势
play,
可能
always
会
being in
慢
the
慢
right
的
place
滚
at the
大
right。time
关键现在
rather
问题
than
还是上路，你
having
单
ridiculous
对单就没得打，
对，
所以说导致 EDG 本身上路是不用管的。你看这边，圣强哥现在惊弓之鸟，看到 Koro 往前走就要往回撤一下。
哎，你别说，是现在这个版本上路选个人马出来，还真的蛮
weekend,
受的。
the LPL sort of awards
就
were
瑞
handed
文
out,
跟剑
and I
姬都
think
属于打
Mako
人
won
马，
best support, Clearlove
就
won
稍微
best
一点点的错误
jungle,
就
and
可能
Flandre
满盘皆
won
输那种。
best
其实我还是
top
不
lane,
太理解
and I
为
think
什
those
么
were
这一
sensible.
局
I
先
was
手
concerned
有
that Flandre
拿
might
人
not
的
win
选
anything
择的
because
时
he
候，
plays
上
for
哥这
Snake,
边
who are
还
quite
是
an
一意
unfashionable
孤行的走
organisation
瑞文。
compared to sort of Edward Gaming,
可
World
能还
Elite,
对于自己实力一种比较自信吧。
even
那
Edward
个这边
Gaming.
要
You know,
开始
Edward
打
Gaming
龙
are
了
a。bit unpopular in
这场
China
比
because
赛
they're
的第
blamed
一
for
条小
breaking
龙
up，the sort of all-time great
这条龙应该会选择
World
直接
Elite
放给
lineup
Snake
that had
7
Roshan
分钟第一条龙。
要在中
and
路推塔了，而
Clearlove
这个
and
时候
everybody
船长
else.
已经摸到了对方的3狼处，随时
So,
准备做越塔的动
but
作。这个时
you
候要
know,
非常
they're
小心
still
这
a
个
big
九
club,
头。
so OMG, where Snake are quite new onto the
九
scene,
头在
and
也
their
许有
only
点胆
their
大
fan。base is nowhere near as
轮子
large
马在侧翼要打吗？又是一个老牛，老牛开始
as
大
some of the
招
other。teams. So I was
对家
glad
还
that
想
Flandre
踢，
got
赶紧
his
往回撤吧！这一波
MVP top,
，Snake
and
这
it
一波
was
是逼出了老牛的一个大招，还有
so
轮子马一个大招，但仅此而已。
对，但也没什么别的事情可以做。唯
the
一的
awards
好处
given
在
out
地
this
图元
season
素就
were
是
all
可以把野
pretty
区的视
fair,
野
which
稍微
is
排一下。
good compared to previous
得到处
seasons
是
where it's really
其实
different
那个这盘
popularity.
小炮的节奏还是蛮好的，推塔推的真的是
But
很
although
其
快。
实
Flandre
两局我觉得
has,
Crystal 的节
wasn't
奏
so
都
good
还
in
不
this
都还
series,
不错。
对，但无
that
奈于
was
首
because
先
Edward
就是上
Gaming
单这个
took
点，因为劣势
huge
有点
amount of
大，
efforts
没
to
法在
get
中期开
Koro
团。
ahead
因为本
so
身我
that
们
he
知道
could
小
help
炮在
deal
这
with
种情况下
Flandre,
就是
and Flandre
一个
has
很
really
良
been
性的循
excellent
环，
over
什
the
么？就
course
是
of
我
the
带
season.
塔，经济一度，团队经济
One
领
of the
先，
best
然后用团队经济
mechanical
领先
players
这
in
段
the
时间给
whole
你团，
LPL,
团完再带塔，
and
拿
one
地
of the
图元
best top
素。
laners
但
in the
因为
world
你
who
上路这个
nobody's
点
heard
现在有
heard
劣势，
about
导
heard
致你
of
打
if
团的
they
时候
don't
胜率不是
follow
很
Chinese
高，
League Legends.
所以说小炮只能继续去发育。这个
Well
后
deserved,
又
and
出了一
definitely
个
the
日本
carry
很不想看到的装备，
of Snake.
大
说这个大冰心，我
Although I think Yu
他
is
这
a
个装备
very,
出出
very
来的话，
underrated
那
player.
个小炮跟瑞文有点
Lots
头
of
疼的。
Chinese experts disagree with me
关键我记得，
um,
哎呦，
about how
来
good
了
Yu is.
起来了，狂奔的野
Okay,
马，
so
这
here
波
you
是
see
有点
Hecarim
燃的，
winning all
石
the
强哥你一定要
duels
小心。
with Riven, but doesn't
就
chase
上
down
一局这
because he
边是
spots
选择
Rom
先
coming
做
up
的
with
3
Riven.
项，但明显我们可以看到这一
But
局
it's
因为
very
有
clear
中
at
期
this
希
point
维尔
in the
包括
game that
中
Hecarim
这
is
样的点，
beating out Riven.
也
He's
是
50
这一局
CS up.
他目前要做
and
的
a
在这个
kill.
阶段
So,
就是
I mean,
保
that's
持单线对阵轮有
a huge
绝对
amount.
压倒性的优势，所以说直接把冰心就拿出来了。
说实话还是
So
看
we're coming up to the next team fight. In this team fight, you're going to see Snake at their very best in this
可
team
能
fight.
尊重一些。我后
And
面
this,
做
I'm
成
going
了
to
绿甲
I'm going
呀，
to
然
pause
后
the team
冰
fight
心
as it happens,
先做个
so
3
we
项。
can
这
have a
个
look
版
at
本
what happens.
这一盘一看，哎，对方好像就是 AD 伤害比较多
This
嘛，
is
先做个冰心，性价比极
so
高。
so
提到了，这家
pause. fights. Okay, so what Snake do very, very well in team fights is they do something which I call a double engage team fight. What do I mean by this? So Snake have a sort of an initial feint where they go in, bait cooldowns from the enemy team, retreat, and then attack again whilst the cooldowns are down. Ironically, a little bit like what I would imagine a Cobra to be. So in this fight, you'll be able to see this happen exactly. And Snake are the reason they're such a good team fighting team is because they know how to play around the cooldowns better than pretty much any team in the world. So you see the initial Lee Sin initiate. So he initiates, blows the Sivir spell shield. So here you see that the time on the game is 1952. So this means, and he also gets pulverized but not headbutt. So Sivir has used spell shield. Spell shield is now down until 2013 in the game. possibly 2010. Some people put two skills into spell shield, depending on matchup. But Snake can't know this info. They don't know this info. But Deft basically puts 1 point into spell shield. So they know that they have 22 seconds from this point to make to team fight without the spell shield down. Primary initiate, bait the cooldown. Okay. So let's have a look at the situation. So you have a 4v4 happening in the mid lane with Hecarim coming in from the top side and Lulu coming in from the bottom side. Okay. So first stage, Snake baits the spell shield. Second stage, Braum comes in, and this is a great Braum out. He gets Gragas, he hits Gragas, zones Alistar, and Ella, who's the support, is immediately going to exhaust Caston when he comes in. So Alistar is zoned out, his Pulverize is on cooldown, so he can headbutt, but he can't Pulverize because that was baited by Lee Sin's initial initiate. The Braum ult hits Sivir, Sivir can't spell shield it, and if Sivir flashes, then it's going to be dangerous for the rest of the team fight, because Sivir won't have spell shield and won't have flash. So it doesn't do it here. So really, really good Braum ult, creates good zone control. Knocks Gragas up. Lee Sin is immediately going to Q into Gragas, and Gragas is going to die before he's able to use his ultimate. So Gragas never gets the chance to use his ultimate because he's knocked up by Braum ultimate, then stunned by Braum's stun, and then killed by Lee Sin before he even lands. So that's that's their main initiate gone. However, the team fight isn't necessarily lost for Edward Gaming yet, because Hecarim is now coming in to offer support. Hecarim is probably arguably the most fed person on the entire map at this point in time, and they have used quite a lot to get this kill on Gragas. Okay, so Lee manages to clear out the Gragas, which is worth it, even if Lee trades his life for Gragas, because Gragas hasn't been able to use his ultimate, but he manages to get out with very solid mechanics. Flashes at the right time, and then manages to ward jump just as it comes out, and manages to get away. Now, Edward Gaming immediately follow up over the wall. You can argue that this is a bit aggressive, but maybe he thinks that he can go and kill here. But so Koro immediately goes over the wall and is immediately stunned by Riven instantly. So doesn't manage to get his Q off on Lee, and Lee manages to survive. No, okay, so Edward Gaming all pile across, and Sivir doesn't. Now, why doesn't Deft go across here? Why does Deft elect to go around? Again, this is the spell shield. Sivir's spell shield is not going to be up for another 8 seconds because it was baited in the original engage from Lee. So Sivir goes around because if Sivir jumps in here, immediately he's going to get Polymorph from Lulu or stun from Riven, and is just going to get taken out immediately. Has no spell shield, has no defense at all if he uses the flash to cross the wall with the rest of his team. So he has to go all the way around, and all this time their DPS is completely is nowhere. Edward Gaming's DPS. So, very well played here by Lulu. Firstly, he gets a 3-person knockup, and Snake win the team fight by isolating the damage threats. So they bait the spell shield, then they kill Gragas disengage, then they isolate the damage threats, polymorph on Kassadin, and so there you see what would happen to Sivir if Sivir had gone across earlier. Sivir's immediately blown up by Riven. Super well played by Flandre here. Gets in the middle of them with a stuns Hecarim immediately, manages to knock them up, and manages to get away. And puts himself in the right position, and at this point the fight's over because the advantage is gone, because Lily can just polymorph fight, and Caston doesn't have huge threats. So this fight is going to be replayed again by the cast, and we'll go and watch it again, and I'll go and talk about these things as they're happening in the game. So you can watch this fight happen before going shit, and this fight gets from the Baron and puts them miles ahead when they were beginning to fall behind, especially to them.
他这一波主要吸收太多的技能伤害了，就没死，很气。当时 EDG 就1个伤嘛，
赶紧把这个导
这个时候
师的
Koro 传送到后面了，
I mean, I
过
don't
来
really have
了
any，comment
这
about
一做
this.
大马
Yes.
没有机会啊，龙已经被打掉了，而且这波进来不一定能走的。
完了，这波雪崩，
哎呀，
雪崩，雪崩！
而且刚才那波团战厂长的位置有点奇怪啊，
他刚才我感觉是他
从下面绕过去了。
他是觉得 ZZR 要上，然后他从侧翼想包对方，但是其实我觉得刚才真的杀 ZZR 太不明智了。
是的，
因为整个把阵型给拉开了，轮子妈没有输出环境。
First, we have Lee Sin engage. Bates is going for Part 2, Braum ults here, getting his own and knocking people out. They kill the Gragas before Gragas manages to land. Very good Riven stun here. Riven using his mobility to get around the fight here, using the Qs exceptionally well. Flashes here to get Sivir. Puts himself in a great position, and all the damage threats are killed. So, that happens super fast. Let's go and watch. We'll go and watch that again one more time. Okay, so Lee Sin initiate. This happens also fast. Okay. Remember, so they know that Sivir is down. Very good knock-up. Great follow there from Lee Sin. Lee Sin manages to get out. He's followed across the wall. Sivir can't get across the wall. The others flash across. They go for the fight. Great Riven play here. Riven makes sure is in the right place to land all of her skills, and especially to finish off Sivir. Just using flash at the right time, using Qs at the right time, using dashes at the right time, and using the mobility well. Wins the team fight, gets the Baron, puts Snake ahead. This, just everybody in Snake fulfilling their role very well in that team fight. You know, Lee getting the kill on Gragas, Braum getting a very good knock-up, Tristana just staying safe and doing good DPS, and very, very strong play from Flandre and Yu. Lulu ultimate at the right time, Flandre making sure to use his mobility well and damage to get around the fight and to isolate Snake damage. One of the reasons why Snake are one of my favorite teams to watch in the LPL. They may not be great a great macro team, but they sure know how to do
需要尽快的扩大胜利的果实。
这边高地，
哇，这都要来。
So this is a minor point, nothing really special, but note Braum's positioning here. Braum. So they create the front line here, but Braum and Riven stay at different sides of the front line. Braum rotates so that he's always facing where the Sivir is on the EDG gaming front line, and Riven plays counter to passive. It's a minor point. I mean, most teams, the reason for this is obvious. You want Braum to counter the Sivir DPS, but it's not just random rotating around the front line. It actually has a purpose. So that is stuff.
这一波确实太致命了，
而且炫军这一局在第二件装备选择上直接做了提亚马特。
这一盘我觉得炫军又是，反正又是忍辱偷生，然后在关键的时刻又是拿到了一些的资源。是的，现在
So at this point, Snake quite far ahead.
就每次都是什么一上来先被对方单杀一次。
And we sort of see a little bit. Oh, why Flandre is very good at it.
EDG 这波还想搞事，感觉
这波龙其实。 无伤大雅，说真的，我觉得
Flandre obviously elects into a losing lane matchup and has Riven for the team fights, but I still
可能有点感觉拖不住了。
There's got to be a better pick that you can pick against Riven. Well, he just played Headroom. He's a really good Headroom. He can play. I don't think he played Headroom on this one, which is a shame. Well, one of these days I'll do an episode on Flandre's Headroom. But the first video, was a very good example of how to play Headroom from Edward Gaming.
他们刚才那波最强势的一波被对方给遏制住了。
Watch the first video in the series. It tells you a lot about how Edward Gaming play the strategic game.
上路兵线也会源源不断的推进向 EDG 的家里，所以说 Koro 从上一局一个牵制手变成了一个必须要被动去守线的这么一个点。
对，
而且现在的问题是什么？就是 Koro 这一局因为求稳出了个冰心，然后导致他现在没有那种我们经常看的人马什么家园守卫进来3项一脚踢死对方 AD 这种能力。
是的，
暂时还没有，只能说。
现在 ED 在等待什么？他们就是在等待对方的这种失误的机会。他们是一个抓失误能力很强的队伍。
So far in this game,
那个
we've
只要
seen
稳扎
one
稳打，
sort of
慢慢
team
的
fight win from
蚕
both
食对
teams
方
and
的
one
野区
sort
的
of
资源，然后慢慢的推塔。我觉得这盘的局面还是非常不错的。
4000块的经济优势，再加上现在上路被迫之后兵线，哎，
Here
哎
we
呀
see Crystal
，Crystal 其
channeling
实
his
很
inner
危险，
EDG.
我只能说，是跳出一个治
He
疗，
was
这
just
真的
jumping
是
into
很
the
危
middle
险
of 4
还
people,
好刚
which
才
is
厂
Stunner.
长是没有太好的角度，打出一个被动，要开大招了。
Nothing to say about that.
这波 Mako 也
Not
是被打出
recommended,
一个大招，
even
这
with a
样的话
leader on
Snake
your
顺
team,
势把
but
二塔
not
拿
kind of
下来。
maybe
感觉
did,
Snake
fortunately. I don't think
他们
Edward
魁
Gaming
首
expected
回
him
归
to
之
do
后，
that,
我觉
so
得
he gets very
这最大的变化
So
就是
here,
太猛
Snake
了。
就他
are
们的
opting
风格
into
又
quite
变
a
成那
dangerous
只
fight
好
here,
凶。对，
because
我们一
Gragas
开
can
始这样，
flank
你看
them
瑞文这边直接扛塔上去拆。
to wall
这
gates,
波是利用对方
and
没
they
口
have
回
to,
城
I mean,，
然后没有
once
大
the
招
rest of the，team,
厂长在这
they're
个角
now
度想
trying to
阴人，
rotate to a
看
choke
厂
which
长这边
Gragas
怎么
can
说？
cover.
没有很好的角度，只看到一个布隆，这边被打出被动了。厂长大招看回来，这家吃了一个路，大招没死，
And
下子已经被
immediately
秒
covered
了。这边
in this
虚
fight.
弱，身上被
Great
挂了一个
Gragas
虚弱
barrel
很
here
关键。
from
而
Clearlove,
且
who's
这边
really
是
been
交
on
出自己的
focus
闪
here.
现没有死，闪现过来
Except
Q 球
for
的
this
身上，哦，这是
flank.
Crystal 一下
For
补
them.
后出了
Okay,
暴击，
and
这样的话再拿到一个
Edward
AD 的人
Gaming
头，
missed,
右这边
Edward
减速到了
Gaming
3个
managed
人，
to get the
然后
kills and
很
chase
关
down.
键。
So let's go and have a quick
一
look at
直
that.
好凶。对，我们一开始这样，你看瑞文这边直接扛塔上去
Remember,
拆。
this is
这一波
we start the team fight. Snake go in to get the inhibitor, which means that they have to retreat through this choke and risk being flanked by Gragas. Okay, so it's but I mean it's not like they can't go for the inhibitor, and they probably feel stronger than Edward Gaming right now, and did just win the last team fight. So, but they have to be very very careful.
是利用
of
对
that.
方没口回城，然后没有大招，厂长在这个角度想阴人。
As before, okay, we see Lee gets the Q onto Sivir and is going to try to bait the spell shield again. However, this time Edward Gaming are ready. Okay, so Lee
看
goes
厂
in.
长这边怎么说？
Okay, gets the spell shield here. However, at this point, Gragas is in a position to flank, which is very, very dangerous. And Lee risks being isolated because Alistair here is zoning people, so people can't go in to back him up because Alistair is going to pulverize them if he does.
没有很好的角
So Lee sort of gets himself caught
度，只看到
and killed.
一个布隆
But。at this point, a lot of cooldowns have already been used by Alistair.
这边被
So
打
it's
出
not
被
that
动了，
Riven comes in here, gets a 3-man.
大招看回来，这家吃了一个路，大招没死，下子已经被秒了。
There you go. Sorry, 2-man stun, which is quite good, and covers the retreat of everybody else. However, and remember that although Edward Gaming look ahead in terms of life bars, their cooldowns they're missing a lot of important cooldowns. So Alistair Headbutt Pulverize is not up, Sivir Spell Shield is not up as well. Okay, so this is quite an even fight at this point, thanks to the Riven Initiate. However, this is an absolutely fantastic Gragas barrel here. Knocks one person away, zones these two, and puts Riven back into the team. So what looked like a good Riven Initiate, thanks to the excellent timing of Clearlove's barrel here, zones it out and manages to get 2 kills. And the most important thing is it buys time. So Snake went in initially, as they always do. Primary initiate, bait the cooldowns, follow up with the secondary initiate. This is the secondary initiate here from Riven, and it's basically completely denied by Gragas. And by the time that Snake would be able to get back in, to go back in, Alistair's Flash Pulverize will be up again. So
身上刚被挂了一个虚弱，很关键。而且这边是交出自己的闪现没
and
有
at
死，
this
闪
point
现过
there's
来
no
，Q
way
球的
that
身
they
上，
can,
哦，这是
there's no
Crystal
way that
一
they
下补后出了
can.
暴
They're
击，
going to kill it.
这样的话再拿到一个
So
AD 的人头，
it's
右这
a
边
miracle
减
that
速
they
到了
only give
3
up
个
3
人，
kills
然后自己
instead
招
of
闪现跑掉。这一波 EDG 是打了一波0换3，
哇，刚才这波团其实最关键的2个点，第一，哎，先看这边
还有还有
能
套餐，
顶一下，跑快快，回神皮克斯减速，跑了，
哇，还是跑了。
跑了。但人马下一个一说不定
If
他
you
没
misses
蓝了
any of
啊，
those
再跑
Glitter
快快。
Lances, oh, the Hecarim's quite easy to take with Glitter Lance, but he would die.
刚才那波很关键的
Just
其实是
manages
第一波
to get
瑞文进场吃到露露大招之后
啊
，Crystal 的伤害一直很高，而且打的位置很好，但没想到是厂长一个大，先把他炸开了，没收到卡丁，然后牛头闪现 Q。2波的击飞技能让 Crystal 在最需要他去补输出，或者他最需要起飞的那个节点上把他打断了。
这一波我觉得蛮多关键点的，一个就是其实还是盲僧跟瑞文，我觉得还是有一点点冲动，就他盲僧上的。
雪球这边想去也去收下资源，但是发现被对方
Okay, so here we have a replay of the fight.
厂长这边其实第一波想上的被减速
They get the
了，
flank
对
here.，
这个时候其实还不好说，但是盲僧你看他落单了，他这个位置，而且因为他把露露的大招给逼出来了，露露大招是给他了，这边是一个虚弱，这边先一炸，被炸输出，然后老牛闪现 Q。 太关键了，这波真的太关键了。
Those health bars are
就如果没有
quite
上这个大
misleading
招
because
，Crystal 能试试收掉一个人。
although Snake are low, if there's very few cooldowns from the other team,
Crystal
that
他们
means
三个
that you
人
can't.
这一波团战，我觉得没有处理的特别好吧，然后被 ED 逮到一
That
个
means
机
that
会。
the enemy's ability to deal
但
damage to
是
you
话
is
说回来，现在
vastly
EDG 还
reduced.
是处于一个劣势。对，现在的问题
So
是，
that fight was a
哎
lot
这边
closer
要
than it
哎，
actually.
这个伤害有
It
点
was
高
really
的。
Killov's excellent barrel.
哎，这波有闪现吗？没闪现。
This is one of the reasons I really dislike Riven integral. Riven can win if she has her ult up, but she can't chase the headroom down. Note here the deep wards that Snake managed to get down inside Eddie Gaming's jungle. This is going to matter later. We're going to watch it. So here, Edward Gaming have been in their base. They clear the wards around Baron, but they don't clear these deep wards. They don't realize these deep wards have been placed, and they only manage to clear the wards which were near the immediate Baron pit, but not the deep
要
wards.
冷静一点，感觉打的有点过凶了。
So Snake assign Flandre to bottom lane,
终于有机会摸到自己。
and Hecarim's teleport is down. So Caston is going to have to go across and meet the Riven Snake. Snake are posturing around Baron, and with their team composition, if they manage to get Baron buff, it's highly likely they're going to win the game very, very soon. So every game you have to respect the Baron.
哇！但这一局我们看到圣枪哥跟上一局的 Koro 承担了同样的作用。
他这一盘跟上一盘真的是天壤之别啊！上一盘他是一直落后7、80刀，然后扛着这个装备的劣势去打的。他现在这一盘没有劣势了，甚至是装备优势。
And Snake see because they're standing on
第
two
二条大
warded
龙
bushes.
绝对不能再让 Snake 拿了。Snake 如果再拿一条龙，这个压力基本上就很难去扛住了。这边狭路相逢，厂长被套上了被动，
这个位置瑞文很致命啊！瑞文这边要杀谁？看想一下，留了3段 Q 准备进场，这边要先打前排。 这边卑鄙的金圣已经被逼出来，瑞文进场遇到2个人，挂了一个虚弱，效果一般。人马本身的一个大招打得很一般，但是 Crystal 那边的伤害已经没有办法阻挡了。在杀掉九斗之后，这边 Crystal 有机会收割吗？闪现过来一发暴击，治疗加速，这边还有机会，又是一发暴击，插一下 ，A 不出来。好，这边去把握就可以了。其实太跳了，上一盘他是一直落后7、80刀。 然后扛着这个装备的劣势去打，厂长被套被动，这个位置上一盘他是一直落后7、80刀，然后扛着这个装备的劣势。
Now, what you normally do if you're teleport flanked or if you're flanked in the jungle is you collapse on the person who's flanking you, collapse on the person, kill them, and then turn and face the other team. However, Flandre is exceptional in this team fight with his positioning, so that he manages to put himself in positions where the Edward Gaming can't collapse on him, they can't collapse on the other side, so they're trapped between a rock and a hard place, fighting in a jungle against Braum's sort of against Braum ult slow, and they can't collapse on the Riven, and once they delay going after Riven, so Flandre always manages to evade them and then counter initiates at exactly the right time, and they're trapped, and Edward Gaming loses the game. So let's go. Of course, it is done. This fight is won by the fact they don't clear these wards. But let's go and have a look at how Snake managed to take advantage. So you see Riven immediately goes on. Edward Gaming thinks, okay, let's go and collapse on the Riven. Riven immediately runs away, avoids being collapsed on, avoids being collapsed on, avoids being collapsed on. Edward Gaming have realised then that they're going to have to go on the other side, and as soon as they do, Riven comes back in and cuts them off. And that's it. So you see, Edward Gaming tried to close on the Riven, Riven evades them, they collapse in they try to attack and try to win a 5v4, and Riven immediately comes in behind them. So, very good, very solid play by Flandre there to avoid being caught. And Snake win the game due to one team fight, one which gives them a Baron, and the other one which they use a Riven flank. So, in summary, this was a very solid quite slow build-up
头儿
game,
这
but
边
very
很无
typical
奈啊，虽
win
然这波团战
from
自己
Snake.
没死，
Passive
但
early game,
是
play extremely
一
well
匹马
around
难以
cooldowns
抵
to
挡
win
对
team
方
fights,
的拆家，我们恭喜 Snake 扳
and
回一
then
城，
use
双方将总比分
aggressive
改写为
positioning in
1-1。
flanks to
这盘也是
to
很
win
精彩，因
team
为
fights in the
EDG
late
依
game.
然在前期确
Edward
立了
Gaming
很大的
managed to
优
win
势。
one
没错。
fight by taking advantage of Snake's tendency to do a bait initiate followed by a main initiate, but it only works out once, and Snake managed to win the game and tie the series 1-1. Okay, so that's the end of that VOD review. Thank you for watching.